is up, divergent friends? Welcome to another episode of Cognitive Dissonance. I'm your host, Loyal to the Foil. This is the channel where we investigate the insanity surrounding us. We have some crazy things to talk about today, like for real, some crazy things. But before we get to that, please remember you can follow me on Twitter, Parler, DLive. All my links are on my YouTube banner. Also, I got monetized, so if you are catching this, feel free to super chat or you can donate to the stream directly at loyaltothefoil.com. Link is also in the description below. And if you haven't checked out my other show, Space Force News Live on 1 Foot in 5D with Alara of Sirius, you should do that. We talk about all things, tech, defense, science, and of course, space related. We do that live every Sunday night. We have a ton of fun there. So make some time and check that out. So I've been gone for a minute. My dad had surgery. I had some things to do, but I came across something the other day that really I just had to shake my head at. And for those of you that have been following me, you guys know that I'm a Christian, and I make no qualms about that. I live down here in the deep south. I'm down here in Christian Iraq. Uh, so yeah, I'm totally on the J train. Nevertheless, you know, I just really was agog when I saw this ridiculous document that secular Democrats had released this past Monday, and I wanted to kind of touch on it. This probably won't be a real long video. There were some things I wanted to go over with you because I really feel like these people, these are people that follow the prince of the power of the air. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the book of Ephesians is probably the go-to as far as like spiritual warfare is concerned. And if you guys follow 17 or any of that, you hear it all the time. Um, but I wanted to throw this at you. Ephesians 2 says, "As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world, and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit, who is now at work in those who are disobedient." And he is at work here, man. He is definitely at work. Um, put on the full armor of God. I mean, we need it. You already know the struggle is not against flesh and blood, man. We are struggling against the rulers and the authorities and the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Man, we are talking about transhumanism. We are talking about what seems to be just a complete and total anti-faith agenda. They're aiming this at Christianity at the moment, but if you are a believer in another faith, do not think they are not going to come for you. And the reason is this, right? The reason is this. Just like in other communist nations, which, God forbid, a Biden presidency would supercharge us on the path to, your loyalty cannot be to a faith. They want your loyalty to be to the state, right? The state is your God. You know, we've seen a little bit open up in Russia, but even there, it's funny because we saw that when they started to adapt, a more market-based approach to their economy instead of this crazy government plan nonsense that sounds real good to these people on paper, but never freaking works, right? Never works. Now look what they're doing in China. I mean, they're literally rounding up people and putting them in camps, right? Muslims got them in camps. Uh, they're organ harvesting from other believers. Just Christian churches being burned in China. Like, your loyalty's got to be to the state. So these guys, these guys that issued this document the other day, they call themselves they call themselves the Secular Democrats of America. Now, if you are not familiar with the term secular humanism, these are people that believe that you don't need God to have morality, right? Which is kind of ridiculous to me. Like, I really believe that God has written his laws on our heart, but these people will continuously make judgments. And I'm talking about in America now. These people will continually make judgments that go against the laws that are written on our hearts in the name of, separation of church and state. And they're really out to try and um, reverse a lot of what the Trump administration has done, specifically with like, abortion, um, federal funding for, private or faith-based schools or faith-based, community groups. They even attack his environmental policies as somehow being representative of this, you know, Christian nationalism, this white Christian nationalism, which is baffling to me. It's almost like they don't understand that there are like literally millions of African American Christians in this country that vote conservative. I want to read a little bit um, from this article, and then I want to go into the document a little bit more. So this was something I found on WND. It was published on the second. A Democratic Political Action Committee representing secular values issued a sweeping agenda for Joe Biden to reverse many of President Trump's advances for religious liberty and to restore a vision of constitutional secularism. And we're talking about Jamie Raskin, Jared Huffman, and other members of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. And I love how these people use terms like free thought because it's only free thought if you're agreeing with them, right? Which is not at all like free thought, but whatever. So they issued this 28-page document this past Monday, and yeah, these people are off their freaking rockers, man. They want to ban religious organizations from participating in government programs, but we've got the I don't know, and this isn't even a joke. Let me see if I can find it. They've got a freaking satanic after-school programs. Not even kidding. Not even kidding. After School Satan. That's what it's called. The After School Satan Club, right? Not a joke. Totally a freaking thing, right? So they want to ban religious organizations from participating in government programs. They want to support governors who would close down churches. We saw how the Supreme Court smacked that around the other day. God forbid they would put this imp of a man in office, and he would probably pack the court. You know why I say he would pack the court is because they told us they would pack the court. That's why. So I don't know how long that would even stand. They want to require new disclosures from churches, overturn religious rights precedents, the Hobby Lobby case, and they want to prevent the mention of creationism in education and work for a de radicalization of white Christian nationalism, right? The document declares that the rise of white Christian nationalism is a national security threat. So their answer, obviously, is to encourage the Department of Homeland Security and the DOJ to dedicate resources to de-radicalization programs aimed at hate groups, including but not limited to white nationalists. That's the only one they list, so whatever. Uh, Increase the monitoring of such groups, including online, of course, and to take action to address increased hate crimes towards faith, minority faith communities, and they want to shift the rhetoric to label violent white national extremists as terrorists. Now, mind you, this is in a document talking about Christianity. So clearly, their continual use of these terms is equating one with the other, right? It's mind blowing. Mind blowing. Um, they insist that government funding should be non-sectarian, restore secularism, protect non-theists. They talk about targeting dozens of presidential executive orders for elimination, including those that promote free speech, provide for equal participation by faith organizations, encourage the strengthening of black colleges, and employ and allow employers to be exempt from Obamacare's abortion funding mandates based on their faith. I don't know what these people are thinking. They literally provide a list, and here they are. And don't worry, I'm going to link the document into the description below. If you have some time and you want to peruse this nightmare fuel, feel free. Um, yeah, but I mean, the list of executive orders that they want killed is more than half of the length of the document itself. So they're all kinds of mad. I mean, look at this. They really they re- really want anything faith-based removed. And it's crazy because in this document, right? Right here. In this document, they say they want to return to the unbridled freedom of conscience. Unbridled freedom of conscience. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot to me like do as thou wilt, right? But it gets worse. It gets worse, right? And I want to go through their preamble. How cute is that, right? So they they want to not only reverse the damage done by the Trump administration, but boldly restore a vision of constitutional secularism and respect in the land for religious and intellectual pluralism. And it's funny that they say that because 90% of this document is even worded like as a direct attack on Christianity. So if you're talking about religious freedom and intellectual pluralism, it would seem to me that Christianity should be included in that milieu. But whatever, okay, whatever. They ask Biden to lead our nation on a path that revives the founders' vision of religious freedom in our government and promotes a unifying patriotic pluralism, not dogmatic religious chauvinism, religious chauvinism in American society, right? They claim that they want to eliminate any kind of, religious dogma or orthodoxy, but they want to replace it with government dogma and government orthodoxy. Again, your God is supposed to be the state, right? So in any case, um, we urge you not to underestimate the institutional strength of what we refer to interchangeably in this document as the Christian nationalist movement or the religious right. This movement is extraordinarily well funded and well organized. And the manifestation of its extreme and sectarian agenda is on constant display under the Trump administration. Its political ideology is anti democratic and anti scientific, right? So when they say anti science, we know where they're going with this, right? We know, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Uh, Clearly, Trump is advancing some reactionary economic policy. I'm assuming they mean with reference to China. I wonder who funds this political action committee. Maybe I should look into that. I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet it would look it would look a little red if I took a look. This has President Xi written all over it, but I digress. You know, uh, the political ideology is anti-democratic and anti-scientific, and it provides constant cover for white supremacy. Apparently, because they equate these two things. It's crazy. Uh, his economic policy, his tax policy, and his dominionist view of the environment that undermines our capacity and will to address the climate crisis. So I think it's kind of funny that they talk about being anti science, and then they talk about things like the climate crisis, you know, or the pandemic. Uh, the only science they want you to acknowledge is the scientists, are the scientists that they agree with. And it's funny because I just want to know who's signing their check. When a scientific study, peer reviewed or not, comes out, uh, say we're going to take big pharma for example, right? Say we're talking about, a study on medicine. Let's just take it a step farther and talk about the vaccines, okay? So, who funded the study? Who funded the study? Was it the company? It's usually the company. Who signs the check of the researchers? Are they trying to get something pushed through for approval? I mean, what is the ultimate aim of this? Like, it is very naive to assume that climate studies or pharmacological studies or even any kind of social science studies, just any of these studies, that these people have no agenda. And it's funny because when they publish something that doesn't agree with the mainstream, it quickly gets pulled. And I'm going to give you a quick example of this. I don't know if you guys caught this the other day. So there it is. So the other day, Johns Hopkins, their newsletter, had published a report that, I mean, it was up for a few days until apparently those darned right wingers got a hold of it and put it out everywhere. The study basically showed that there was no real difference between the total number of deaths this year and the total number of deaths last year. And that if you really looked at the way that these deaths were attributed, the deaths they claimed were the result of corona were inversely proportional to the number of deaths attributed to other causes, heart disease, renal failure, whatever, right? So as the Rona deaths go up, heart attacks go down, cancer goes down, whatever goes down, because because the primary cause of death for a lot of the people that are dying, it may have been exacerbated by this virus, but the primary cause was probably the massive comorbidities, the massive number of comorbidities that most of these people had, that and their age. So, of course, they retract the study. Then they attack it because that's what they do. So the only science they want you really to agree with is science that they approve. And if you have something that is counter narrative, they ain't got no time for that. Ain't nobody got no time for that, right? So they pull it down and then they attack the person that wrote it, who probably is a respect. I mean, you got published in the Johns Hopkins newsletter. You probably had a respectable career. I'm sure that I mean, I did read the study. It seemed fairly logical to me. I mean, the math was straight. The statistical analysis was good. There were no shenanigans afoot there. They just pulled it because other people disagreed. So if that's how we're going to do science, right? I have a real problem with that. And I've said it before. Like, science is not. I hate when people say stupid shit like the science is settled. Like, bruh, the science is never settled. That is literally not how science works. Science is when you are constantly reevaluating what you think you know in light of what you learned just now, or in light of the data you have today. Like, you have to constantly be willing to renegotiate what you thought was the answer, because you are constantly getting more information. But I'm the crazy one, right? I don't know. I don't know. In any case, and that holds true for everything from medicine to the environment, but not to these people. It's only science if you agree, right? Which is crazy to me. Um, yeah. So Here we go again. Policy decisions should be guided by science and evidence, only the evidence that they approve. But it's crazy. They go along. I mean, they make this big long argument. Um, that there are these religious minorities that are mistrusted in the United States. Atheists and Muslims. Like, I don't know about you. I don't distrust people of Muslim faith on a whole. I distrust extremists of any brand, right? We have to be, we have somehow lost, and it really feels like we've just lost this ability over the past couple of years, but especially right now, we've lost the ability to listen to what somebody with a different point of view has to say, and to be able to have a dialogue or any kind of a discussion. Like, we automatically go to, like, shut that shit down, right? If they're not agreeing with you, then what they're saying is not worth listening to. And as ridiculous as these people are, I still believe they have a right to say what they want to say. But they don't feel that way. They don't feel that way about you. They don't feel that way about me. As we see, that's why censorship is a problem. You know, the super tolerant and inclusive left only is tolerant and inclusive if you agree, which is about the most ridiculous shit I can think of. So they go through and I mean, they specifically are talking their big issues: government funding, right? Um, so they were big mad. They were big mad about the whole Planned Parenthood bit, right? Uh, they see they see the administration's actions against Planned Parenthood as like this fundamentally Christian thing, instead of fundamentally as the murder thing that it is. Like, I don't even I wasn't always a Christian, right? But even before I was a believer, if you created a life and then you killed it, that's murder. I'll probably get kicked off of the channel for saying this, but I'm saying this shit anyway. I don't care. Like, really. So they were big mad about the whole government funding issue. I mean, the pulling of funding from Planned Parenthood, even though they're selling baby parts, and the government funding of private religious organizations. And I don't even mean just private religious organizations like private schools. I mean, like, faith-based community groups or faith-based adoption agencies. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're trying to if you're a legit adoption agency and you're truly trying to help some kids, man, please do, because people just don't have any heart anymore these days. They also make a big argument about religious exemptions. And they specify a case, Fulton versus the city of Philadelphia, which does specifically deals with um, ideas of religious exemptions. They're talking about faith-based foster care in the case. But what they're really addressing now is the idea of being able to have religious exemptions from general law. And they're worried that this case, which has not been decided yet by SCOTUS, that Fulton versus the city of Philadelphia, could potentially protect religious exemptions, um, almost as an extension of the First Amendment, right? And why are they so worried about this right now? Well, I reckon it probably has something to do with the coming vaccinations, right? And it's awfully funny because just a minute ago, hold on, let me see if I can find it. Biden came out and said that the vaccinations would not be mandatory, right? Yeah, there you go, right there, boom. So he came out and he said, yeah, it's not going to be mandatory, people. Don't panic. I don't think it should be mandatory. I won't demand it to be mandatory, but I want you to wear a mask for 100 days, right? And you're going to have to stay at home, and I want you to wear the shit in your house too, just in case. But yeah, definitely Shots not mandatory. Okay, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. We don't have to have the government make something mandatory if it's mandatory by default, because without it, you can't get on a plane, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go see a concert, none of that. And these places, at the moment, their plan is to issue you, um, to issue you a, you know, a vaccination card that you're going to carry around. You're going to carry this around, right? And that way they can verify, that you've got your shot. Everything's going to be fine. Reminds you when to get your next dose, of course. But as you know, and especially if you've been watching my videos, they fully intend on making a digital health pass. And this is where we come back to my favorite subject recently. What we are watching happen is the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset. I don't give a shit if they called it a conspiracy theory. These people wrote a book. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there are some videos up on my channel. The Overlords Want to Do What is one of them. Dr. Evil, the Reboot is another. Those two both deal with Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum and the literal book he wrote called The Great Reset that now is being claimed to be a conspiracy theory. I mean, the man wrote a freaking book. And as I said before, there was another man that wrote a book with a whole plan for some sort of global reset, and that shit ended badly. So we already know where that's going to go. And it's even crazier than that. If you go back, there's another video on my channel called Save That He Had the Mark or the Number of His Name, right? And I'm talking about another document that I found that was written by one of the advisors on Biden's Rona Council, um, basically talking about the bundling of services and how to get minorities to trust their government. They literally want to tie in these vaccinations with things like rent assistance and food stamps. That sounds like leverage, right? That sounds like leverage to me. That's crazy. That's crazy shit, people. So they sum this article up in the end, right? Number one, by praising Barack Obama, of course. Why wouldn't they do that? But they want to redefine what religious freedom really means, right? That every American has a right to practice his or her own religion without interference, but no religious group can impose dogma or orthodoxy on other citizens unless it's the government. That's really what they mean. Only the government can impose dogma and orthodoxy on people, apparently. Um, oh, they insist on science prevailing, especially in issues regarding sex education. And when they talk about that, they're talking about, you know, kindergartners, literally. And I'm not just being, I'm not exaggerating here. Children as young as 5, starting with a comprehensive sex education program. They even want to take the rights of the parents to make these decisions for their kids away. Like, man, I don't even know. I don't know, right? But these people, they call, okay, so the plan calls America's motto, "In God We Trust," a relic of McCarthyism and the anti-atheist hysteria of the 1950s, and says that all references to Judeo-Christian values should be condemned. And it also goes as far as to insist that politicians should not be allowed to say God and country, right? Words are funny things. Words are funny things. It if you're not allowed to talk about subjects, if you're not allowed to verbalize your thoughts with certain words, they're they're literally rewriting they're literally rewriting how your brain is going to process information. And it's kind of like They're softening the battlefield. That's what they're doing, people. They're softening the battlefield, right? They've been indoctrinating people for generations, right? Slowly, especially this last one. Good Lord. Um, they have goals. They have goals here. They have goals here. They are not just trying to reset our country. They're trying to reset the way our brains work. In a lot of cases, literally. And I'm going to get to that in my next video. I'm going to get to that in my next video. I came across some crazy stuff this week, um, about them using uh, ways to manipulate your neurochemistry. Basically, about them finding ways to manipulate your neurochemistry from outside to control your thoughts. And I'm not even on some tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. I mean, this is literally not conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy reality. So if you have some time, keep an eye out for that. I am going to probably do a deep dive on that here soon. I just wanted to come to you today and kind of say my piece on behalf of the Lord, because this is nuts. This stuff is nuts, man. It's go time, because they can't they cannot be allowed to demand subservience to the state. Man, if we don't defend this now, that may be it. Like, that may be it. Well, on that super happy, cheerful, positive note, that is all I have for you today. Please make sure to, like, share, and subscribe so that I can get this information out to the sleeping masses. God knows they need it. Um, Come check me out on Twitter. Feel free to drop me a line in the comments below. Much love, peeps, and stay loyal.